Good evening, everybody. Stephanie Brown here from Intelligent Construction Opportunities. I'm happy to welcome you here on our live stream, talking about how to build a pragmatic construction app. Would love to hear anybody in the comments, any questions as we move forward this evening, and would love to know where everybody's tuning in from and what platform perhaps you're coming in from. We are here to try and start to rip apart the issues around digital adoption. And so I've got a great lineup, I think, of guests tonight that round out what that experience is like. So I'm Stephanie Brown, and my company is Intelligent Construction Opportunities, and we are the tech before the tech. We support your software selection process, so you're investing in the right technology for your business and your specific projects. I started ICO for construction professionals so you can align your outcomes with the technologies in the way that you do business and manage your projects. I have a learning and development background myself, and I know a thing or two about the disconnect between the software and a tech world and the actual construction professionals that use the technology. And with that, I want to open up by introducing everybody to the panel tonight. We've got Irfan Majur. He's got a lot to contribute and a lot to say in terms of how it is that he helps Patrick Mimeault, the managing director of Trade Specifics and the creator of Trade Specifics, with how that app is built. And alongside Irfan and Patrick, we've got Christian Perizzolo and Kirby Anderson. They have respective companies. Kirby's company is Alberta Exteriors, and Christian Perizzolo represents Noble Group, and it's a management construction group, I believe, out of BC. Is that correct? Yeah. So I'll start off a little bit with Patrick and Patrick's background. Patrick worked in the trades for quite a few years and started in developing subcontract services around 2002. And he kept coming up against walls where lack of workers is a thing. We all know there's labor deficits all over construction, and it's an issue. And the inconsistency of attendance for trades on jobs and safety compliance all sort of built up so that Patrick felt the need to start to think about developing an app like Trade Specifics. So with that, Patrick, I'd like to turn it over to you and sort of let yourself, be introduced to our audience tonight and let them know a little bit about who you are and what you're doing currently to help all these situations.
Well, thank you, Stephanie. Like you said, I've been in the trade for a long time now. I started as a young boy working in construction and working for mostly trades like bricklaying, framing, and mostly envelope. The rest of my career, I tried general contracting for a little while too, and I found out, it wasn't as easy as I was expecting. So I tried many things, and with my businesses, you encounter many good success stories, right? Like we have some good jobs, we make some good money, some good years, some bad years, but it was always the same issues that I was encountering. It's a lack of attendance or collaboration or accountability on work sites, which in return, well, it's always come to us. Your general contractor calls you in the morning and says, well, hey, you don't see guys on the job site. Where are they? Where's everybody? And then I'm trying to call them and they're not answering right away. So I have to either spend the time or have somebody go to site and check if they're actually there to find out that they're working with machinery. They don't hear their phone. So I had that problem lots. Managing also the task and make sure that they had the proper information to conduct the tasks up front. So we knew what was expecting of us and where to find the details was always an issue. So it was a lot of time lost. and then not enough workers, well, then it's hard to scale your business, because then when I find that I'm trying to scale the business, it creates other issues on site because you don't have enough workers. And if you don't have enough workers, you spread thin, you don't deliver. And being a service company, I thought, well, hey, I need to find something that's going to help me out. And I looked at many platforms. I used the giants and platform like Buildertrend, Procore, and all this. And I found that more of my general contractor and my target clients were using digital platform, and I needed to brush myself to understanding how to use those. So even went as going back to college, did architectural and engineering, to technologies and technicians to be able to talk the same lingo as the architects. Try to pass on my knowledge and bridge that gap also with the architectural team to say, well, here, I've been installing this stuff for 20 years, but how can I communicate with you the details that makes more sense and works as part of your plan, your look, and to fix the contracts that a general contractor would tell me, oh, Patrick, you're way too expensive, you're $250,000 more, and you drive by the site 6 months later and it doesn't look anything like you've seen on the drawings. So really, I wasn't cheaper. I wasn't, we were offering different things at different times. So many inconsistencies. I said, well, let's fabricate my own platform. And by starting my own platform, I found that there was a lot of needs from co-affiliates, co-trades that are experiencing the same thing. So then we tried to deliver it in the market. We found some issues with the users. We found issues in scalability. So we got back to the project stable, and then I brought Irfan into the team, and we tried together to scale this thing and make sure that it's easy to use, scalable, and at the same time make sure that the users will actually use it, because that's the biggest constraint that we have, is to show the value in going digital for small companies or small users on site. And I think that we found a way, and we're well on our way to develop it. And it's not easy by any means, but we're gonna get it done.
For sure, and that's a great segue into introducing Irfan to the conversation. Irfan has a UX background. He's worked for major enterprises like Pepsi and companies like that doing UX design. I've had some conversations with him, and he certainly knows his way around how to build a feature. So with that, Irfan, if you could talk a little bit about your own background, your own experience, and what do you see in terms of the kinds of features that are going to be most important as you work further and further on this particular application?
Thanks, Stephanie. Appreciate it. Hello, everybody. My name is Irfan. As Stephanie mentioned, I am the UX designer here at Trade Specifics. I've been working with Patrick for the past year and a half, building out the platform, adding features, removing features, doing the on-site user research, seeing what the market is asking for. In that time, we've built out a platform that lets you know where your users are, lets you know how many hours they've worked, lets them collaborate with each other within the app itself on iOS, Android, on your computer. They can upload files, do as many things as they need, and never have to leave the app. So everything is there, and all the project files are maintained in one spot. In terms of the features and building out and what we need, as a UX designer and product designer, any product that you're using on your app, on your phone, they have somebody like me doing it. So my first thing is called a user-centered design process. What does the user need to accomplish here? What is their problem? How am I trying to fix it for them? So from there, I go step by step. I ask a few questions. Where are they going to be using this product? In our case, well, they're on the job site. Great. So now they're on the job site. How can we immediately get them logged in, working, their hours are counted, and they're collaborating with other team members? So I go through this entire process to make sure we don't miss anything. And from there, we test it on the site, and then we get more feedback coming in. The second step to this is called the hook method. With the hook method, I've got a trigger, I've got an action, I've got an investment, and at the very end, I've got a reward. So a trigger, for example, could be, now you get a notification on your phone. So in our case, the end user will get a notification saying, John, you're starting a job today at 8 a.m. right? That's their trigger right there. They'll look at their phone. What's their action? Again, that's the action. They're opening the app. They're seeing what's there. What's their investment? They're going through the application to see what they need to have for that day. And what's the reward at the end? The reward can be a multitude of things. For example, 20 logins, for example, now you're going to get some rewards, some points added to your account, get a Starbucks gift card, whatever it may be. Whatever the end user is most likely to find beneficial, that's what you'd end up putting in there. So we're working through all of that right now to really understand what the end user wants. It's a very different market that I've ever worked in before. As Stephanie mentioned, working with Pepsi or Sony or the big banks in the US. For the most part, you can understand what the issue is and how to solve it. Whereas here, you're dealing with construction workers who may not always have their phone on them, for instance, and that's going to cause a problem right away. It's a host of issues. So as we're working through this, we're figuring out ways to solve these problems.
So can we get a little deeper on that? And just also, I want to make sure that Christian and Kirby can weigh in, because they use this particular app and use other apps, and they've got their own deep, backgrounds as well. So we'll sort of put a pin in that for a minute, Irfan. And I want to introduce Kirby. And so Kirby can tell us a little bit about what he does with AB Exteriors and what your association is with Patrick, and how you're, implementing this kind of software and tech into your own jobs.
Hi, thanks for having me. And, it's been a long journey, but to pin it down, narrow it down, I think my interest and my association with Patrick really developed when we realized that we could work together pretty efficiently, to be honest, on streamlining some digital platform for the field level. I started out field level and I migrated up to management level. And be honest, some of the apps that we use were non-existent when the digital platform came along, because the GC and the builder, the designers, all used a computer-based program, and personally is not user-friendly in the field. So the app really is something that I'm interested in developing to help streamline the efficiency. As far as measuring it, again, it's been a wonderful process working with Patrick to try and refine it as we see something pop up. So as Irfan said about coffee and points, like I've lost count how many times I've tried to use that methodology to encourage my staff to do better, if you will, or start using something more. So my more sales pitch to my staff, for one, starts at management, and two is a due diligence base. We're in a world of due diligence, and without a user-friendly app in the field, there's not much to offer, especially old school guys that don't even want to use a digital app. It's really tough to encourage them and promote an app unless it's user-friendly and it's providing something to them. So coffee card is one, but mine is due diligence. Guys, cover your butt. Keep doing a great job, but make sure you've got documentation and pictures and messages through an app. Is a great way of covering your butt 2 days later or 6 months later. So those are some of the interesting things that Patrick has helped definitely coach me along, because I'm not very computer literate, savvy myself, but
that's important, Kirby. I think it's very important to call out the demographic, and I don't think that there's any shame in the game for people of a certain generation just because they didn't grow up in it. I mean, I'm a former chef. That's one of the things I did in my past. I mean, I didn't need any application or any computer to make a hollandaise sauce. It just didn't have to happen. Sorry. So there is, when you've spent your years, getting really great at running a project or hanging duct or painting or installing whatever you install, and the fact that you didn't need an app to do it is no reason to feel that you're any less because somebody gives an app to you that does have a reason to improve your efficiency in what you're doing in the way that you communicate with the job that you're doing and finishing and completing. Anyway, I do think that's something that has to be talked about more, and the respect still has to be given to the trade for the trade itself, and know that the application is a digital tool, and people like Erfan's job is to figure out where does that digital tool become useful within the usual steps that any tradesman or tradeswoman takes in completing their job. And with that, I want to turn it over to Christian. I think Christian's got a lot to bring to the party in terms of his experience in the oil and gas sector, and a little bit of the story that you were telling us before we went live tonight. That really does tell the story that the application has to follow the process. Follow the process. It's not the other way around. You do not design an app for the sake of designing an app. And with that, Christian, I'd like to turn it over to you and let us know a little bit about yourself and Noble Group, and how you came to where you are tonight.
I appreciate that. When I finished my master's, I went to work for a tech firm in Silicon Valley that sold into the oil and gas world, and a lot of the owners and the EPC firms in that world invest heavily in fancy software and applications, and most of that is in the engineering space, where we've been making intelligent 3D models for a long time to design pipe and equipment and major facilities management, operations people, wanting to train people on a unit that was, you're designing an offshore oil platform and you want to train the staff before it's actually built, because every day that you're not pumping oil is money. And they've got a massive infrastructure type and dollars to spend on these things because it makes sense to do it, right? And a lot of the software that is generated for those fields is sort of where they try this stuff out, and then it sort of trickles down to us that do institutional work, or that do civil work, or that do smaller stuff, because nobody starts out building an app for multifamily wood frame experts, which is what I do now. We all start making apps for the big companies that have the big dollars that are able to pay for it, and frankly, where a small return on investment means a lot of dollars, as opposed to, you need many people to have a little return on investment to get together to pay to develop an app when you're, on the trade level. So that's just structural, and I can give you all kinds of examples, but it's been, I am a construction manager and a development manager of small to medium and large, even multifamily wood frame projects. And I've been doing that for 15 years. And we have not seen enough technology permeate our world in a useful way to my site people and my trades as site people. We have lots of software that helps us at the PM and accounting level. And a lot of that software comes to us from the bigger, guys. And now that, it's being sold and it's been modularized and made to work, and I can plug people in at the PM and admin level, but my site guys don't take to it. And it's basically because we're pushing what we want out of it down onto them, as opposed to them getting something that they need to do their job every day in a way that's useful to them. And so flipping the model to where the trade is making the application for a trade, and the user is entering information that is useful to their job and their everyday need, is the only real way that I know that I can build some of the content that would help me then do my job managing it. Because if I have to generate the content, administrate that content, push information around, but nobody else is actually buying it in, I'm just publishing and it's sort of a read only at their level, then it's not useful. And as soon as it's not right, because people aren't using it every day, then that's the reason they don't want to use it, because it's not right. And so you start out by doing this great, it's like building a schedule, and if you're not adjusting it as you go, then you're out of sync, and then nobody looks at the schedule anymore, right? How many times have we been into a trailer and we've seen 1,000 line item schedule, And we all know that it's the back of the napkin at a trade meeting where we actually decide what we're doing for the next 2 weeks, right? So, in that simple example, how do we give the guys a better napkin that is useful to sketching out what they're doing for the next 2 weeks that informs us, right? And flipping
I love that.
is
How
huge.
do we give the guys a better napkin?
That's what it is.
That's the name of my next live stream.
And I got to tell you, you asked me earlier, what's changed. I have to tell you, in that 15-year arc of when I bought Noble and started, I came out of the tech world. I got a master's. I grew up with technology. I can make spreadsheets do things that you don't even think they can do, but that doesn't help my super build a building, right? So I'm the guy that thought, okay, I'm going to bring all this technology. But I can't get my guys to use it. So what am I doing wrong? And I've been pounding on it. And listen, just getting to the place where I have a folder structure in SharePoint that they trust they can find the things they're looking for in that isn't going to change day to day has been like 90% of what I needed. And honestly, almost enough. And then, we live in a spreadsheet world because guys are used to spreadsheets and they can control spreadsheets and they can make lists. And they worry that if they go and put things into an application that, they can't find it, it'll change, somebody else will mess with it, they lose control. It's a psychological warfare battle for me. When a super makes a list and he comes to his meeting and he says, this is my deficiency list, he knows what's on that list. He knows why it's on that list. It's come through him. He knows he can manage that list. When you ask him to put that stuff in an app and it sends out 1,000 notifications to 300 guys and nobody actually updates whether or not they fixed something, then there's no feedback mechanism, and then it's out of sync by the next week, and now it's like nobody's even looking at the damn list. So why are we using this app? Because it's not actually helping us control quality. It's just tracking issues. Well, hey, you can finish a project and have 20,000 issues that you've tracked, but not know what's been cleaned up, what's an issue, what's not an issue. Now you're working deficiency lists from consultants, and it's a perfect example of the process being wrong. So if that superintendent can't easily track an issue, make a list, and then work that list with the trades in a collaborative way that gets feedback, then it's useless, right? And so
Exactly.
it's all about the process. And what I started out by saying was that, we sold software in my tech life to these big EPCs, but the ones that got the most out of it were the ones that were willing to change their process and tell their various departments with their various towers of power and histories of knowing how to use their systems and protecting their turf, that you have to change and you have to use this process, and it's our way or the highway. And construction is going to dictate how we design and how we procure and how we deliver and how we turn over systems, right? And when you can start looking at the project and the scope in that way, and you have the guys that are the boots on the ground telling the supply chain and management how they're going to build it and what they need when, then you've got the ability to actually deliver and make those returns. And that simple model, without getting into examples, is like, how do I accomplish that on my site every day? So if my trades aren't using a piece of software, they're not getting enough value out of it to contribute content or track things or whatever, I'm never going to get anything out of it myself. Unless I pay a guy $50,000 to sit there and just crank stuff in and then chase people around looking for feedback, it's going to be useless, right?
And there are some large contractors doing exactly that. But that's
100%.
partly why I exist, why Intelligent Construction Opportunities exist, to make sure that the workflow that contractor has now is aligned with what is out there. If there is something out there, and you have to decide what your compromises are and what your priorities are.
Right.
But having said that, I want to kind of swing the conversation now back to Patrick in terms of his relationship and how he builds this and how Airfund makes sure that the features are there, and how that affects both Christian and Kirby, and how you're being able to receive what is being designed by Airfund.
Yeah, so for me, it was a few things. So I wanted to go back. I took a job with Brighton College to go back and teach a little bit of the project management processes on the work site. And really, that process for me was more about refreshing my education of what is being taught now to project managers. And we push now in college, the first thing we say to project manager, it puts the risk and liability to the trades. So once that was confirmed, because now, in the old days, the general contractor backed up the trades and everything, but now we push the trade, all the risk and liability to him. They supply the material, the manpower, they finance all this until they get their draws, and then we get monitored by the general contractor. So seeing that, for me, it was more now about learning how to work with the other trades to say like, whoa, wait a second here. Now we are at risk and liable for all these processes. I need tools to make sure that I stay on my toes and make sure that I meet all my deliverables, make sure that I meet my contracts, make sure that I do my job right. So I started pushing back a little bit, and that's where working with Christian, actually, that was great to work with Christian because of his background as a developer in general contractors. In the early age, we started developing shop drawings. Well, shop drawings were at high level before in industrial, commercial, and large jobs. And now on residential projects, we're doing shop drawings, hammering out the layouts and all the colors first. And when we went to delivery, we were successful every time because we had a process, we had it mixed. And even now I do that with development for Christian, where I work with the architectural team. So went back to school, learn about architectural technician, make sure that I can do proper drawings and respect the architect and what he's trying to achieve, and respect the developers on his projects and deliverables, what he wanted and how the building should function, and then work that out up front. So when we go to production, it's an easy follow the lines, follow the dots, color by numbers, and do your jobs right. We don't have to figure out how to build it as we go. And then the architect comes back on site and sees it and says, whoa, this doesn't look anything like I've developed, I've drawn. And the developer says, well, I'm over budget by $1 million. That's not good. So by doing this, I found that all the projects I do with Christians are fairly successful. Maybe schedule and constraint that we can't overcome, like the pandemic and things, but at the end, we deliver exactly what was expected from us, and it's easier for us to budget and keep on track.
And Patrick, I don't mean to cut you off, but it's because of the pandemic that it's even more important to do that stuff. So this morning, Patrick's doing a project with me. I met with my management team on site, and we got the architect to confirm some things, and we're mocking up walls. We haven't poured our slab on grade yet. I want Patrick to be able to order the flashing that he needs and stockpile it and have it sitting there for 3 months until we need it, because I don't want to wait till we need it to then find out that it's not going to be available. And the same process that Patrick describes that he does to streamline his job, right, it was what I described earlier in work-face planning. It's getting materials, equipment, and information to the face of the work when it needs to be there. So it's that pre-work, it's the supply chain work, it's that upfront work. And I needed to recognize that guys like Patrick have to invest a lot of time and effort to get through the estimating and the tendering and the contract and the procurement side of things before they ever see a penny, because they haven't put a stick. They've done a ton of work before they ever put something on the wall, right? So I've gone to the place where I say to Patrick, okay, here's some money up front to do the thinking work and to break this up and to look for VE and because it's worth it. There's value there for me. And we've come up with a process on the tender side where we can deal with that. And it's worked out really well for us, because at the end of the day, as much as we push the risk onto the trade, the reality is when a trade can't make it, it's our risk anyways. And when the hot water tanks don't show up and I can't switch them to something else, I'm the one paying the bill if I want to turn over a building. Whether I sink them or not is a secondary issue. So I have to deal with it. And the days of looking at the trade as carrying all the risk is sort of useless, because a lot of the trades, let's just be honest, I'm in the same boat as a GC or a developer. I don't have the margins to be able to eat it. We're all working for such a tight margin that it's that upfront planning and collaboration that matters. And the same things that matter to Patrick that he wants to sort out by using this in his world matters to my tile guy, matters to my plumber, matters to, I know they all need it. I know they all could use it. But I know that not any of them have the ability to sit there and do what Patrick's trying to do for himself and his, you know, his scope or his world. So the idea there is, you know, it goes back to what I said before. If we can do something very simple that lets us do 80% of what we need to do every day simply, whether you're a cladding guy or a sprinkler guy or a plumber or a drywaller, we all have the same needs. We all have to do time cards. We all have to track progress. We all have to take deliveries. We all have to do FLRAs and site safety forms and equipment checks. And we all have to do a stupid COVID thing every time you enter the fence. And you know what? I say to superintendents, I started out by giving all my superintendents a laptop. Half of them returned the laptop in nicer condition at the end than when I gave it to them. But they all have an iPhone in their pocket. And if their 2-year-old godson or grandson can use it, then they can frickin' use it. And they're not unwilling to use it, even if they're not computer guys. So let's leverage the cell phone. We can all go to a restaurant now and click on a frickin' QR code and do something with our phone, right? All of us can now, especially because of COVID. So let's use that. Like, let's make it that.
That's right. So what you want to do is have these applications.
We have to do in the app, and now we're in the app and using it, and then maybe we can get them to do other things, right? That's the key.
Right. And so this swings the conversation, as far as I'm concerned, to the broader idea of how do you build, or how, because I know that you, Patrick, you're working on building an education element into your application.
Yes.
So perhaps, between yourself and Erfan, we can talk about, what does that look like, and what do you have planned to ease people into it? And thank you for those ideas, Christian, because you're being very, I like it, pragmatic. Let's not talk about what's not going to be used. Let's use what will be used, and let's lower our expectations in terms of getting people to use it and understand it, be comfortable with it, and then we can start making bigger ideas.
I'll take the lead there, Irfan, and I'll let you finish. But what I've come to realize, Stephanie, is that now that I was working with upper management, from the general to the developers, back to now the center ground. That's why I'm in the middle of things with our application or company model, because then I go sit down with Kirby after, and then we educate the crews on what is expecting all of us. And we've got now a good map and a good plan to follow to be able to execute properly. And I think when me and Kirby started, unfortunately, it costs a lot of money to digitize all this, Stephanie. So I had to build some kind of a plan. And I found that the education will come, I'll tell you why, but now it was more the project management office, the digitized project management office, to help a guy like Kirby. He's got a huge successful business, but also was saying no to many projects because of what? You have to hire so many people to be able to project manage it for it, more estimators, more project managers, more coordinators, more people, and they're not available. And also, where do you recruit those new crews now when you already have a hard time to fill the demand? So I teamed up with Kirby, I think, since December 2018, and we started doing estimating with Kirby and working closely with him, approaching different type of markets, general contractors, opening that relationship with some of the clients that are willing, like Christian, to be open-minded and work with that process. And it's been working very well, I think, Kirby. The only thing is, same thing Christian was saying, is how do you scale this? How do you digitize this? Because Kirby keeps us busy. I believe we give him a good return for his investment, and even more so to the developer, the GC, that gets their work done with proper processes, guidelines, and we all collaborate together to make a successful project. And that's the beauty of it. I see that happening right now with some of Christian's project, Kirby's projects, and we deliver a beautiful product, and we can assist Kirby as an extension of his office. So, but now how do I digitize this, and how I make it work? Because Christian had that, we're meeting with my team, with Christian too, because being from a background in technology, says, how are you going to scale this? And I think Irfan and I found it. It's going to be through that module of education to make sure that we can take a client to come in, educate on the processes, what do we value to your business, follow that education modules, just like the banks did or BDC does, and gives you a counselor, someone to teach you how to do a strategic plan for your business. And then you can use the digital platform, and then you'll know how to use it properly. You'll be able to pass this on to your project managers and your coordinators. And then we keep it up every month with modules where, like your live stream, we can educate Kirby's project manager on the importance to do that, so that they do a good deliverable for Kirby and manage their projects. What tools can they use? Just like this gentleman I just met before this live stream, he owns a landscaping company, needed more worker. Well, another worker came, spoke only Spanish, work permits, everything is good, teamed them up together. Turns out to be a beautiful worker for him. Now he's able to scale a little more, take on more work, doesn't know how to penetrate in the commercial world, they're multifamily. Now we're helping him through a digital project management, showing him how to produce estimates, how to do scheduling, schedule of values, all these processes that if you don't go to university with high level, or if you don't go to school to learn it, we learn it hard knocks on site. We make all our mistakes, and eventually, you're 50 years old and you know how to run your business. But that's where the education comes in, is we're going to help manufacturers also. We have a manufacturers, their product got installed in Las Vegas, got installed improperly on the structure, not because it wasn't screwed properly, it was in the wrong wall assembly. Well, it cupped, it curled, and it's not a problem manufacturing because it was a matter of installing. But little know that subtrade, that trade that installed that product, didn't know how to install it into that wall assembly. If you would be educated on that wall assembly and how to do it properly through our platform, well, the manufacturer wins because his product gets installed properly. The trade wins because now he's getting paid for the work performed and it looks great. He gets more work. And the developer finishes on time and on budget, and his product looks great. So we found that what ties it all in is that education factor, is to spend that time up front. If you're really serious about improving your trade business, well, then why not do a small courses with us, so we can educate you on the proper processes, how to use the platform to do so, and then this way you can grow with us. If not, then you're never going to learn it. We're never going to get the users to actually use our platform into their benefit.
So I want to sort of take this to two levels now. So we're talking about a mobile app, so we can see that there'd be some sort of education that would be available right there, readily available on the mobile app. I'm personally envisioning, a catalog of what I'll call mini workshops, where basically, it's perhaps task oriented, and that's the kind of thing that, a plumber doing XY task can pull up and he'll go, okay, that's how I use the app for this, and I do this and I do this, and then boom, he's out. He's on to his work again. He's not, living in la learning land, so to speak. And not learning for the sake of learning, but learning pragmatically. So if you could just sort of paint your own vision of, you did share, a few ideas with me prior to the live stream. How are you and Erfan, seeing this roll out in reality, or maybe even as you pilot it?
Erfan, do you want to take the lead on this one? What you're developing?
Sure. Yeah. Just to pick up what Patrick said here. So, in the construction industry, there's one huge problem that everybody faces, and that's a shortage of labor. That is one of the biggest problems right now, and skilled labor at that.
And by the way, we've got Steve Turner on the call. Sorry to interrupt you, but I want to acknowledge him. Bring Back the Trades. He founded Bring Back the Trades out of New Hampshire, Rye, New Hampshire, and has been doing a lot for the trades exactly about the labor deficit. Sorry, carry on, Erfan.
Oh, no worries. His name looks familiar. Yeah. So with the huge, basically shortage of labor, we need a way to get people into the industry. For most kids coming out of high school, going into construction is not even on their radar. For many of them, it is just not there whatsoever. And a lot of them, they're not going to go to university right away. They might not even finish high school right away. So there's an opportunity here to educate these young people into the industry, show them the ropes, the steps that they need to get in, and say, hey, you know what? You can make a great living in this industry. You can have your own business, your own team, and make a lot of money and be extremely successful. So that's where this really comes in, because this is going to solve that problem of getting more workers into this industry. And construction isn't just being on the job site either. I mean, there's a host of other things: project manager, architect, the range goes on. So for some that might not want to be on the job site, there's other opportunities there as well. In terms of how it looks and feels, it's basically, my whole thing is don't reinvent the wheel. So basically everything that they're used to using, it'll be very similar to that, whether you're on your desktop or you're on your phone, the exact same user experience that they're used to using on any other app. So whatever it is, whether it's LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram, whatever it is, Coursera, etc., that's basically how it will look. And the vision here is just to really create economic opportunity for everybody out there. So, and there's again such a shortage of labor that anybody that basically wants a job right now, they could basically get it. So if they can come in here, learn a few things, they'll be making money in a short matter of time.
I agreed. And also, I mean, Steve Turner and I work with him as well with Bring Back the Trades, to exactly what we're talking about. And I think the idea is to make people understand that in all careers, there is a path. You don't become a senior project manager the first time you're a project manager. There's a path to that. You don't become a manager without having done some of the field work, and no matter whether it's an office setting or whether it's a construction site, or name the kind of job situation, you don't start off as a manager at McDonald's if you've never dropped some fries in a basket before. I mean, and I don't mean that in a disparaging way at all, because they are systems. They are systems, and then you start to manage a system, but you have to work the system in any system before you're capable of being a manager. And so, all of these things go hand in hand. And I think it's just absolutely essential that, we all just kind of admit the truth. It's a path. It's a path. So I want to sort of understand, how does the audience, how do you see education being used in an application? And those of you that are willing to come on and make some comments here, but would really like to understand how you see education being used and what you hear Patrick and Erfan talking about. Do you see that is a way forward? Because certainly digital adoption is an issue.
We want to go more direct to the audience. So in the event like Kirby runs a successful business and wants to increase his business, needs more estimate, quantifying, shop drawings, drafting, and such. So by educating that trade business owner to how to use our platform to request those estimates and shop drawings and details, we can digitize this process, which we are right now. We've got the prototypes, we just have to code it. And then we go on the other side and take the worker that wants to become an estimator, and we teach them the processes to be a proper estimator and what's the deliverables needed. And then we tie them in onto our digital product. So then this way it's scalable, and at the same time, we can help many people at the same time. And by that education is just then we're becoming more of a maintenance for a direct goal. There's a lot of platforms out there. I'm looking myself right now to become a Scrum Master, to run my developers and how to run a sprint, because I'm a project manager, but how do you manage many engineers that have master's degrees, way more educated than I am, and to the processes of developing software. Well, I've got to learn this, and I looked online, and I've got 100,000 courses online that I can take, but none of them are really targeting me to my goal. So we're trying to close that gap. We're trying to make sure that the individual wanting a trade, we're going to direct you put you in the right direction.
I can put you in touch with somebody who actually specializes in Scrum for construction, should you want that after our live stream this evening. I took it myself, so I know firsthand. Nice. And I just want to recognize Scott Dryden here from Vancouver, who has weighed in on what he believes, and that what you're talking about are very fundamental They're just fundamentals. And as far as I can tell, it's going to become, to me, Patrick, not a case of trying to get people to be educated so they use the app. It's enhancing the job experience, and even more than that, it's enhancing their career. That's the bigger goal.
The app is simply the tool. We're not wanting to force people to use our application. We want people to use our application as a tool to better their business and as a tool to better their career, and at the same time better market and collaborate more. By 2025, we're going to be short in construction hundreds of thousands of people. So
and it's actually worse than that, because just in the same way that we're short of skilled trade labor, we don't have as many people coming into the management side either. And the older, more seasoned, experienced people are moving on. And, we're trying to get many more people working under fewer people managing, kind of. And it's hard to do that. And one of the things we struggle with is, my small firm, I might run 4 or 5 projects, and we're making the same mistake over there that we made over there last year, right? Because everybody's on their own little island that cares about their own little silo. And when I worked in the developers world, they all had wiki pages and they all shared code and they all had, different, and they all kind of contributed to the knowledge pool for the company about how we do. And they could all just but we don't do anything like that in construction, because, we just don't. Nobody has that picture of how we solved that problem for that project unless it was on an approved shop drawing, and it's forgotten. And again, that's one of those things that as a developer or as a manager of people and trades, if we were using a tool or a platform to do our day jobs, and that was a residual benefit where we could capture some of that how-to, then when we're in that design meeting that I was in this morning telling an architect how I want the door detail on this project, I can pull it up because we just did that on the last one. And it's so simple, but we're training our architects because they're all coordinator types that are just learning on the job and they've never seen it before either, right? So you have skilled people on the labor side that they'd never seen it. You got people drawing it that haven't really seen it. You got people on the site that maybe have done it before but have their own way. And now the building codes are changing. I mean, the building codes in Vancouver, I don't know about the rest of the guys out there, but the amount of the step code requirements on building envelopes, Teddy Tui numbers, GHG numbers, we are building way better buildings than we used to. We are building pianos. They're getting smaller. They're getting harder. There's way more to them at a time when the trade base and the skill level and the knowledge level is going the other way. And so the only way we make up that gap, honestly, is training in tech. And that's why, if that was a residual benefit of people building and doing and using this app or any other, process-wise, I'm just saying we need that at every level. And it's the same wicked problem on a construction site. The academics will talk about construction and software being development being the wicked problem, right? We never build the same thing the same way in the same place with the same team at the same time ever. We're not building Fords in a warehouse, right? Every project's different.
Exactly.
And that's why it's so process.
But also, you guys are flipping it on its head because you are saying it's trades first.
Correct.
That's the flip here. And oftentimes in any kind of application you get, well, do you have executive buy-in? Do you have executive buy-in? You do need it because they write the check. You do need it. But by the same token, if the trades own as much of the job as they do, they, to me, are the stopgap for it being successful from that perspective. So if you flip it the way you guys have, you are going to have, quote unquote, trained and educated a new demographic of people in construction that understand that it's app and trade up and not the other way around.
We want to be part of the team. We don't want to hit the wall as a trade every time that we want to be part of your team. We are smaller companies. We are more people on sites than we have a coordinator or a project manager, but we want to work alongside of you and help you out at the same time as we want your assistance by making sure we understand what we're doing to accelerate the project, making sure that we can service many different companies and then do different jobs and efficiently.
And Patrick, you bring up a really good point, because I mean, I talk to vendors all day long, and at the end of the day, you know, we said it at the top of this call. I mean, at the live stream, I mean, apps are generally built with the big guys in mind. But the truth of the matter, like all business, most businesses, and especially construction, are made up of smaller contractors. And that's, to me, our opportunity to capture. Is it harder to do it? Yes, because there's more of them, but that's really the more significant change to me, is when you're addressing many more smaller contractors rather than trying to pursue the bigger issues of the fewer enterprise organizations that can dial in those, you know, $100 million, $200 million contracts. So I've got a comment here from Scott Dryden. He says, it's crazy, as an SPM, most times I have to put on the mentor's hat. Fellows like Kirby make it worth it because they get it if you support them. Great points, people. So yeah, I certainly second that, Scott. I think a very robust conversation. We're closing in now, close on you know, maybe about 9 minutes more in our live stream if we want to continue. I had a conversation offline before we began, and I would like to somewhat continue this conversation as we kind of build out and grow out the gaps in digital adoption, and this newer lens, I'll say, that sees technology built from the trades perspective, as well as now this other component of, I'll say, education, and not education in a onboarding kind of, you know, we'll teach you how to use the app for the first 3 months, and then, you know, we'll check in with you every once in a while. More of a building in the career path with the use of the technology. If there's anybody in the audience that has any questions or any comments, now's your time to be able to do that. I am going to give a little bit of a plug for as far as what I'd like to see happen, at least in the immediate after our live stream, and that is that if people want to have a checklist of features of a great construction app and be able to share their ideas for what they'd like to see as far as education is concerned, I'm going to recommend that you DM me at info@intelops.com with the subject line, send me. That's all you have to do, is send an email with a subject line that says send me, and we are going to get together some collateral after the fact that we're happy to send out to you to keep the conversation going and to involve people, so that we start to turn the corner and stop talking about why is technology not being adopted, and course correct where it needs to be, and to bring everybody into the conversation from the bottom up. And with that, I want to kind of do a little round table here. Erfan, do you have anything to say as closing comments?
No, this was great. Thanks for setting this up, Stephanie. It was nice to see everybody here. And yeah, hopefully we can do this again soon.
Great. Great. Thank you so much. And Kirby?
No, I'd like to thank everybody too. I get excited to see growth in our construction. I can't help but think there's great things to come. We just got to go through some of the growing pains to get there. You know, we can reminisce about yesterday, but we got to look at the future, and there's great things coming. It's just we got to climb that hill to get there.
Yeah, and as Christian was alluding to, I mean, buildings being built better. I mean, you know, there's environmental challenges for good and for bad. I mean, you can't, he's looking at, okay, Christian, over to you.
I got my permit to collect fish from the ditches I need to infill today, but it's 6 more months till I get the permit to infill the actual ditch. Anyways, that's a different story.
But that's government bureaucracy. That's a whole nother piece.
I want to share a story. I always tell this story. Sure. When I was first pitching this software to Bechtel up in the oil sands, an old guy in the back of the room listened to my whole spiel, and he put up his hand at the end and he said, you know, in the old days, we had this big plastic model, like just pipe cleaners and plastic, and we all got into the trailer and we looked at this model. And when I wanted to figure out what I was going to do, I'd take my lighter out of my pocket and I'd burn off a chunk and I'd bring it out. We'd talk about it and I'd bring it back and I'd stick it back on the model. And then one day they said to me, we're going to make your life better and we're going to go to CAD. And CAD's going to save all these trees. I've never seen more trees get cut down since we've gone to CAD, because every time they change the drawings, they got to print it out. Then they said, I'm going to make your life better by giving you an iPad and a computer so you can access the CAD. But they keep changing things so easily in CAD that nothing's ever current, nothing ever makes sense. You know what I really, really, really want? Can you please just make a hologram or a plastic model that I can take my lighter out to, and I could take a piece and I could bring it out to the field? And the point was, dude, we did not make that guy's life easier, right? We made it harder. And that guy knows everything there is to know about metallurgy and welds and gaskets and pipe and temperature and expansion and contraction and which system has to get turned over first. And you can line up a shit ton of engineers and pay them a lot of money, excuse my language, to make.
It's on record now. Don't worry about it.
That's the guy that's getting the job built. And we made his life harder. And 20 years later, we still haven't solved the basic problem, right? And I just, in everything I try to do for my company, I ask myself if I'm actually making my people's life easier and or better. Like, you know, there's some amount of buy-in. You need somebody to put in before they can get out. But, you know, if they don't get out, then they're not going to put in. And if they don't put in, then it means nothing. So I just want to just remind everybody that we can put in all the bells and whistles and features and buttons and hooks and triggers and bonus points and all that stuff that we want. But at the end of the day, if it doesn't help us do our job, so we don't have to go home at the end of the day and spend an hour at home with our wife waiting for us to come to the couch and fill in spreadsheets and make reports and send things out because we got all this stuff together today but never had time to actually do the admin, then we're not going to use it. And if we can't do the admin on the spot at the moment that we've got the problem and it can't be done in a useful way, it's just not going to matter. And all of this is all just smoke and mirrors.
Yeah,
so
and that's my job, Christian.
I remind Patrick of, and I appreciate Irfan and Patrick for, you know, wanting to think that way every single time we have a discussion about a piece of functionality. Like, let's just do the 95% of what it needs to do really, really simply and really well. And then the other stuff, it won't matter. And B, when it does, great, we'll deal with it then, right?
That's right. I think that we'll make this happen. Thanks, Stephanie, for having me and having us today. That was great. Irfan, always pleasure to work with you. Your designs have bridged that gap between my site conversational and to my developers, which is a very diverse, strong, intelligent people developing for us. And thanks, Kirby. You've been so much support already that we're learning how to change all these processes. And Christian, your feedback always welcome, because you know me. I want to make sure this works, and I'm going after it. And we're going to make it happen. It's already happening now. I see a lot of value, but the collaboration in the last 2 years that I'm seeing in the field, it's getting better and better, and that just there is my goal. It's just to make sure that we can all work together and have one tool where we can all get along. And
well, you're being holistic thinkers. I mean, you know, each project is unique, and each kinds of projects are unique then on top of that. So, I mean, it takes people like yourself, Patrick, that have the courage, and people like Kirby and Christian that are willing to tell the truth and yet cooperate, That's just, how else are we going to get there? And to Christian's point, exactly. It only needs, you need to move the needle so that you're making these things help the situation. They're not there for any other reason. Yeah. This is not a Facebook scroll where or a TikTok video, or, you know, I mean, for the most part. I mean, every once in a while you hit something in TikTok that's got value. Every once in a while you hit something in Facebook that's got relevance. But we don't need any more online clutter. We just don't. So anyway, I want to thank all of you. I think this is terrific. And as far as I'm concerned, I will be taking an offline conversation and see how to continue it and what's beneficial to the audience as well as to the team here on this call tonight. So thank you so much for participating. And just want to give a shout out to Trade Specifics. That is the name of Patrick's app. And this is Noble Construction Group, which is represented by Christian tonight. And last but not least is most certainly Alberta Sound Exteriors, represented by Kirby Anderson. And Irfan works very closely with Patrick. He's got another gig, which is unassociated, but certainly couldn't have accomplished tonight without you. So again, thank you to you all, and everybody have a good evening. And please DM me at info@intelops with the subject line "send me" if you'd like to get a checklist of collateral that is associated with what we've been talking about this evening. Have a good night, everybody.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.